Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The sentencing hearing for the man convicted in the brutal assault of a 6-week-old baby girl took place earlier today. BCN's Angela Stewart will have the details. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is applauding the Alberta government's decision not to move forward with a bid on the 2030 Commonwealth Games. And the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives speaks out on the charges against former U.S. President Donald Trump.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. A Lethbridge father will spend the next 7 years behind bars after brutally assaulting his 6-week-old baby daughter that left her with extensive injuries she will likely have for the rest of her life. BCN's Angela Stewart has the story.
Appearing via CCTV footage from the Lethbridge Correctional Centre wearing a blue jumpsuit, the father found guilty in the vicious assault of his 6-week-old baby girl stood motionless with little to no emotion on his face as the maximum sentence of 7 years was handed down to him Friday afternoon. In sentencing the father, who cannot be named under a publication ban to protect the victim's identity, Justice Kristen Aylesby said this was the longest sentence she has ever delivered while serving on the bench and believes a 7-year sentence is fit and proper. Justice Aylesby explained to the court her reasoning behind the sentence and what ultimately led her to this decision. She believes the sentence not only satisfies the public's interest, but also that the father, in her words, mitigated to plead guilty in March. The 53-year-old father pleaded guilty to aggravated assault and failing to provide the necessaries of life. Charges relating to sexual assault and sexual interference were dropped after doctors found no medical evidence. A warning, the facts in this case are disturbing. On January 18th, Lethbridge police conducted a welfare check at a home on the north side. When they arrived, they noticed the child had trouble breathing along with a twitching hand and fixed glaze. The baby was taken to hospital where doctors discovered extensive injuries including severe head trauma, spinal ligament injuries, and a detached retina in her left eye. She has since been released from the hospital, but doctors are uncertain if she will ever see out of her left eye again and believe the child may live with cerebral palsy for the rest of her life. Along with the 7-year sentence, the father has also received a lifetime ban on firearms and is also required to have DNA testing be done. He has 2,255 days left remaining in his sentence after already completing 199 days behind bars. He will then be transferred to Bowden Institution, where he will serve out the rest of his sentence. For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
Police in Coaldale have charged a Calgary man with 70 offences, including a string of break-and-enters. RCMP say the man used an electric scooter and a grinder or a saw to gain access to various businesses and ATMs. Police say he stole more than $15,000 at various break-ins in Calgary, Lethbridge, Raymond, Strathmore, Diamond Valley, and Coaldale. The Coaldale businesses that were targeted included the Fast Gas, Esso, and Ming's Restaurant. 30-year-old Calgary resident David Letourneau-Janvaux faces 70 charges, including break-and-enter to commit theft, theft over $5,000, possession of a stolen vehicle, and possession of a prohibited weapon. He remains in custody and will appear in Calgary court on August the 16th. A funeral service for one of the 2 hikers who died in the Crow's Nest Pass last week was held earlier today in Lethbridge. Hundreds of people paid their respects for paramedic Jonas Sven at the South Pavilion of Lethbridge Exhibition Park at 1 o'clock today. Sven and firefighter Greg Godet died following a hike along the North York Creek Trail just outside of Coleman. Their bodies were found last Thursday at the bottom of the ridge of Mount Colthord. Both men in their mid-30s were seasoned hikers. The cause of death for both Sven and Godet will be determined in an autopsy. As you've heard on Bridge City News, the Alberta government has decided against putting forth a bid for the 2030 Commonwealth Games. The province says they just didn't see a solid return on investment with a price tag that could reach $2.68 billion. Now, to chat about this in more detail is the Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, Chris Sims, who joins us from Lethbridge. Chris, are taxpayers celebrating? Was this the right decision for Alberta?
This was definitely the right decision for Albertans and for taxpayers here in this province because we just can't afford this. You know, we've got record demand for people using food banks. So in real people talk, that means that working parents, parents with jobs, are counting on donated peanut butter to feed their kids. Like, it's pretty bad out there, pretty tough. And so it just was not justifiable to ask those taxpayers to pay millions and millions of dollars for a 12-day table tennis tournament. It just wasn't there.
But what about those people who say this is a great way to celebrate our athletes? Plus, the Commonwealth Games would have brought a lot of money to our hospitality and tourism sectors.
Everybody loves watching sports, or most people do. And this isn't about whether or not we love watching sports. This is about whether or not we can afford this, especially right now. And the answer is we just can't. And usually, gently, it's usually the planning committees that are saying things like, it'll pay for itself. These sorts of big international sporting tournaments almost never pay for themselves. And so we did not see the data showing this was a good return on investment. And at the very least, going forward, the good news is we're going to have referendums as a rule on this. And then the people can decide if this is truly a good return on investment.
What is Alberta's debt looking like right now?
Great question. Alberta's debt as of right now is about $80 billion. The good news is it's going down. The bad news is it still costs us about $2.4, $2.6 billion just in the interest payment every year. For that kind of money, you could build 2 brand new hospitals from the ground up, and it's going to bond fund managers on Bay Street instead. So we don't have money to spend on stuff like this.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was Chris Sims, Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Lethbridge. Team Canada Junior Roller Derby managed to bring home the bronze medal after competing in the World Cup in France last weekend. Team Canada defeated Team World 340-67. A member of the female division says it was interesting to see how teams from other countries performed.
The Sweden team, we did not expect them to be quite so powerful and come in so strong. I guess we didn't anticipate that, but it's kind of cool seeing like how everybody plays too at the same time. They're all kind of different skills that they work on in different like ways of playing, but all like they all come together as a team, and it's kind of cool to see the different ways that people play and how we can maybe incorporate it into our play at some point maybe.
Meanwhile, the Open Division team landed in 4th spot after losing to Australia.
It was pretty awesome. I had a bunch of friends at home who were cheering me on, and the people at home really made the global thing 10 times better, because yeah, the world is awesome, but like the people at home. And then just playing derby at that high of level is something that I never thought I'd be able to do, but I did it. It was pretty awesome.
6 teams in each division competed in the 3-day tournament. Congrats going out to Team Canada, competed hard and made us proud. Well, it was another gorgeous summer day here in Lethbridge, lots of sunshine, but a bit hazy at times from some of the wildfire smoke. Jeanette Rocher is in now with an early look at the forecast. Jeanette, how is the long weekend shaping up so far?
Yeah, well, it's shaping up nicely, Hal. And you're right, you mentioned there the haze in the air due to the wildfire smoke. We should mention also, if you are planning to head out camping this weekend, there is a high fire risk, and many areas also are seeing a fire ban in place. Now, for Lethbridge, we are looking at a bit cooler temperatures on Saturday and more cloudy conditions than we've seen normally. High of 22, which is much lower than the average high for this time of year of 26 degrees. So if you are one who doesn't like that high heat and you're more comfortable in around that 22-degree range, then you should enjoy Saturday, because we are going to see high temperatures again on Sunday and Monday. So I will be back later in the show to give you that full 7-day update.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. 2 days of voting wraps up tonight that could end the labor dispute at BC ports. Voting by members of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union Canada on a potential new contract concludes at 6 p.m. local time. The port workers have been in an ongoing dispute with their employers, which included a 13-day shutdown of more than 30 terminals and other sites last month. Federal Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan has directed the Canada Industrial Relations Board to impose a deal or binding arbitration if it decides a negotiated solution is not possible. It appears as though the wildfires in British Columbia have been taking a toll on the province's tourism sector. James Upton, who runs a nature centre and a nature resort south of Kamloops, says the threat of the Rossmoor Lake fire led to cancellations by all but 3 guests. Meanwhile, Kathy Cooper with Kootenay Rockies Tourism says as the smoke clears from the St. Mary's River wildfire, bookings are rising in a number of communities, including Cranbrook. The BC Wildfire Service says there are currently 350 active wildfires burning in the province. Meanwhile, here in Alberta, emergency officials say there are currently 103 active wildfires burning, mostly in the northern regions. 2 of the wildfires are still out of control and 36 are being held. So far this wildfire season, Alberta's seen 936 wildfires. Fire advisories remain for many regions of the province as we head into the long weekend, including in Banff National Park, Waterton Lakes National Park, the High Level Forest District, and Rocky View County. Alberta Wildfire says around 75% of the wildfires were caused by lightning, 16% were human-caused, and 9% were considered suspicious and are currently under investigation. The families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron led a traditional First Nations round dance at a downtown intersection in Winnipeg. They were demanding the provincial government search a landfill for the remains of the two women. People chanted, "Bring our women home," as red paint was poured onto the pavement at the intersection of Portage and Main.
Biggest thing that I wanted to say today, because I feel like we've been talking about this landfill search for months, and we've had meeting after meeting after meeting, and we've talked about what we want, what is needed. The families have talked about what they wanted, what they needed, and we're just done talking about it. For the time being, we have to make our voices loud and heard, and we have to show them that we can make change in this country whether or not they like it.
So I've said it time and time again. They don't want to search the landfill. We will. You will hand us the shovel. You will hand us those hazmat suits, and we will train ourselves if you will not retrieve our women, because I am sick of words of affirmation.
Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre took another shot at Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today. Poilievre says the Trudeau government is demanding more control of our lives. He says the Prime Minister wants more red tape, fees, and higher costs on natural health care products, including vitamins and supplements.
By the way, we will also stand up against Trudeau's attempts to shut down natural health products. He's trying to shut those down. This is about nothing more than giving more power, more control to multinational pharmaceutical companies rather than letting Canadians have the freedom and choice to try different kinds of treatments. We need more freedom and choice, not less, in the health decisions that we make.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Halifax talking about his party is going to make life more affordable for renters. Singh says many are worried right now about potentially losing their homes.
We've launched an idea of an acquisition fund to keep the affordable rentals that are available, keep them in the hands of the community, not-for-profit community groups or cooperatives, but keep those rental units affordable. And we need to build non-market housing, because market rents and market homes are simply unaffordable, even for people who've got good incomes. So we need to build non-market housing that's not subject to the market rates, but something that's actually affordable for people.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to federal charges that he conspired to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Trump was indicted earlier this week on 4 charges as part of special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the alleged conspiracy and the January 6th Capitol riot. The indictment also said that there were 6 unnamed co-conspirators. The case has been assigned to U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, who is a Barack Obama appointee. The next hearing is scheduled for August the 28th. Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, says the charges against former President Donald Trump appear very political. He says when the polls show that more Americans are willing to vote for Trump over Biden, more indictment charges seem to surface.
Well, look, I didn't see what happened today. I've been in meetings all day, but the one thing I do know is it really begins to feel like it's a two-justice system. I mean, I've watched Hunter Biden and what the federal government tried to give him pretty much immunity till a judge said no. It just seems to me, if you're part of Biden Inc., you got to pay to play, and now you got a federal government that lets you off on it, and everybody else gets treated differently. I just think that's wrong.
Full stop on all charges of the 3 indictments?
From what I see now, they seem totally political. It seems as though every time Trump goes higher in the poll, he gets a new indictment. It seems to me, after you learn of the real dealings behind the Bidens, the next day he gets indicted.
Republican presidential candidate Chris Christie traveled to Ukraine for the first time to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He said he wanted to see firsthand what the country has been dealing with in its war with Russia and how the United States can continue to support Ukraine.
Social support is very, very important. That's also frontline. Yeah. So we are very thankful, and you are very welcome.
Well, I thank you. The biggest reason I came here was because I wanted to see it for myself, because then it will best enable me to go home and describe to people in detail the things that I've seen. There are still millions of Americans who, as I drive and travel around the country, still have Ukrainian flags outside their homes, hanging from their balconies. There will always be political arguments in America, as you know, as there are everywhere. But I believe that the overwhelming majority of the American people understand that we need to be with Ukraine on this fight.
Hundreds of Haitians marched the streets in Port-au-Prince protesting the kidnapping of U.S. nurse Alex Dorsainville and her daughter. The fate of the two who were taken last Thursday is still unknown. Dorsainville, who's from New Hampshire, was working for a nonprofit Christian ministry at the time. Witnesses say that Dorsainville was working in a small brick clinic when armed men burst in and took her and her daughter. Some members of the community said the unidentified men asked for $1 million in ransom. According to the Center for Analysis and Research, Haiti has seen hundreds of kidnappings so far this year. Bishop Daniel has faced persecution all of his life. Now, despite many opportunities to flee, he chose to stay and support his church in Iraq and those in his community who could not leave the country. This is his story.
On my 16th birthday, my family got a killing threat from the radical groups in Baghdad. The threat was paper wrapped in a bullet and dipped in the blood. And it was written in the threat that we need to leave in 24 hours, otherwise we are going to be killed. Today we are facing a crisis, which is the hemorrhage of the Christians going out of the country, leaving the country behind. So if we will not have them today, we will not have any future for the church. The Christians of Iraq, they are one of the most ancient sects in this country, and we are working so hard to preserve our existence. Many of these challenges are being readdressed by the church. We have and we open trauma healing centers. We call them hope centers. They focus on bringing the hope of Christ in the lives of our young people. One of the core things that we're focusing on is to bring new leaders to the community from the young generation. From other side, the church is trying its best to talk with officials to find job opportunities for our community. The church is trying to make some pressures on officials to make laws that will preserve the rights of the Christians in this country. As a church, we always believe that the church is one body. So that's why it's important for our brothers and sisters to pray for us, to stay in solidarity with us. Without their help, we are unable to fulfill most of the programs that we have today with the youth and with the centers of hope, and also the vocational trainings that we have. My dream for the Iraqi youth is to accomplish their dreams and also to be more resilient and to become the salt and the light of this country. We really need them in the future to lead our community into a better place where maybe we could then do that.
Praying for the Christians in Iraq. Wow. You know, life can be exhausting at the best of times. Our culture sometimes idolizes busyness. We ignore the need for downtime and appear to have way too many distractions that take our attention away from more important things in life. Marianne Howard is the author of the book Rest, Overcoming Spiritual Fatigue. She says there's shocking information on how distractions really impact our lives.
People now lose concentration after 8 seconds, which means we now have the attention spans of goldfish, which is just wild. The other statistic that really strikes me as crazy, and I think it's playing a huge part in fatigue in all areas of our life, is that we tap, swipe, and click our device 2,617 times a day, which stops me in my tracks. You know, I think it's waging war for our attentiveness.
Catch the colorful and very informative interview with Marianne Howard and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up after Business News. Well, we saw a little bit of haziness from the wildfire smoke in parts of southwestern Alberta today, but still nice and warm. As for how the long weekend is shaping up, we'll have those details for you in just a moment. The long weekend is almost here. It's looking like a great weekend if you want to head out to Waterton or Banff. Just be careful if you're going out camping. The fire risk is very high because it's so dry. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, it's not only good camping weather, but also a great time for perhaps a backyard barbecue.
Oh, definitely. That's the next best thing if you maybe couldn't find a camping spot this weekend. But looking to the long weekend forecast here, high of 22 on Saturday, which is much more comfortable conditions under the average high for this time of year as well, which is 26. But then we're back up to 28 degrees on Sunday with lots of sunshine. Not as much sunshine, though, on Monday, but warm conditions. 26 for a high. We could see some shower activity beginning and then a shower as well on Tuesday with a high of only 19. That's where it's going to drop down there. So the showers mostly gathering in the end of our long weekend there and then into Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, mix of sun and cloud, high of 22 and 24 to round out that 7-day forecast. Average high for this time of year, 26. Average low, 11:35 was our high temperature back in 1939. And in 2005, it was a chilly 4 degrees, 6:06. That is when the sun rose this morning. Sun setting this evening at 9:08 p.m. We're just over 15 hours. We're at 15 hours and 2 minutes exactly. Okay, on the west coast tomorrow, mainly sunny conditions. Victoria looking at a high of 24 degrees, cooler by the water, 50k winds in that Juan de Fuca Strait, 23 in Vancouver, but 29 inland, 25 for a high in Edmonton with a mix of sun and cloud, and Calgary looking at partly cloudy skies as well with a high of 23 degrees. Mainly sunny though across the rest of the prairies as we look to Saskatoon and Regina, seeing lots of sunshine, 27 for a high in Saskatoon, 26 in Regina, 30k winds in both of those cities. Winnipeg sitting at 26 with hazy skies, also some showers, and looking at a risk of some thunderstorms there. So lots going on in Winnipeg. As we get to the central part of the country, Toronto seeing lots of sunshine, 27 for a high, 24 for both Ottawa and Montreal tomorrow, and beautiful clear skies there as well. Not so much clear skies happening in the Maritimes though, as Fredericton is going to be seeing 5 to 10 millimeters of rain. Could see a thunder shower as well, 21 for a high there. Halifax, 20 degrees, looking at 10 to 20 millimeters of rain, 20 particularly in those heavier hit areas. Thunder shower risk as well, and high of 20 degrees in Charlottetown. Could see 20 millimeters of rain in those heaviest parts as well. Also a risk of a thunder shower there. Clear skies in St. John's though, high of 18 degrees. There you have it. That is your forecast.
TELUS says it is laying off around 6,000 employees as the company's second quarter income dropped by 61%. The Vancouver-based telecommunications giant says profit fell to $196 million or 14 cents per share. That is down from 34 cents per share a year ago. Of the 6,000 layoffs, 4,000 will be at its main business and 2,000 cuts will take place at TELUS International. Company officials say they will offer early retirement and voluntary departure packages. Stats Canada says the unemployment rate increased to 5.5% in July as job creation lags behind population growth. July marks the third straight month that the unemployment rate has risen. The federal agency says the economy lost around 6,400 jobs. Stats Canada says job losses were led by the construction industry, while the greatest job gains were made in the healthcare sector. Enbridge saw a $1.8 billion profit in its most recent quarter as it reached a settlement with shippers for tolls on its mainline pipeline system. The Calgary-based pipeline giant says it also moved toward proceeding with its Rio Bravo pipeline project. The Q2 profit compares with $450 million a year earlier. Enbridge says it reached a 7.5-year agreement in principle on its mainline pipeline that is subject to regulatory approvals. Maple Leaf Foods says inflation contributed to a $53.7 million loss in its most recent quarter. The Mississauga, Ontario-based company says adjusted earnings for the period ending June 30th were $45.9 million. That compared with $23.6 million in the second quarter of last year. Sales in the quarter improved from $1.19 billion to $1.26 billion. Meat contributed the bulk of those sales, though Maple Leaf says its plant protein division made $36.7 million in sales during the quarter. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 115 points on the day to finish at 20,236. The Dow was down 150 points to 35,065. The S&P 500 was down 23 on the day to 4478, and the Nasdaq was down 50 points to 13,909. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.13 to 82.68 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to 2.58 US. Gold was up $8.85 on the day to 1942.91 US an ounce, and silver was up 6 cents to 23.63 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $10.75 per bushel, barley's at $8.75, canola's at $18, and corn is at $9.93 per bushel. Live cattle were up $2.40 to $180.90. Feeder cattle were up $1.58 to $249.53, and lean hogs were up 2 cents to 101.02. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.75 US. Recapping one of our top stories, a Lethbridge father will spend the next 7 years behind bars after brutally assaulting a 6-week-old baby girl that left her with extensive injuries she'll likely have for the rest of her life. The sentence was handed down earlier today at the Lethbridge courthouse. The world and its busyness can really run you down, and distractions can have a negative impact on your life. That's according to author Marianne Howard, who wrote a book on the subject called Rest, Overcoming Spiritual Fatigue. She'll have more on her informative book shortly in an interview with BCN's Jeanette Rocher. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's stories, be sure to visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. Everyone in Lethbridge is invited to come out and celebrate their cultural heritage on Heritage Day, Monday, August 7th at Galt Gardens. The fun begins at 11 a.m. and goes to 4 p.m. with fabulous food vendors, live entertainment, activities for the kids, and so much more. The event is free, so bring your family, friends, and neighbors to Heritage Day at Galt Gardens and make great summer memories. Do you have a heart to serve our community? Streets Alive Mission is looking for volunteers to help make sandwiches, sort incoming donations, assist with Foot Friday, and many other opportunities to serve, receive training, and to provide support for this important cause of bringing hope to the hopeless. Visit streetsalive.ca to fill out their volunteer application or call 403-320-1159. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.